Brindle Babe Designs. In this video I'm going to show you how to make the Magnolia crop top. I am going to be doing the size medium for this video, so be sure to check out my blog at brindlebabe.com where you can find the pattern with sizes extra small to extra large. So let's get started with the materials. You will need a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook, and I used a boy crochet hook. You will need a tapestry needle, as well as scissors and stitch markers. And now for the yarn, I chose Hobby Lobby's I Love This Cotton. And I'm doing it in the color Ivory. And this is a 100% cotton, and it's a weight for medium yarn. I recommend, because you'll be using multiple skeins, to get all the same dye lot number so that you have, if you're doing a solid color, that you have no variations in your color. And you will need, for the size medium, 3 skeins. Okay, now we are going to start off with the front panel. There's not a big difference between the front and the back panel, but I'll go over the differences a little later. So to get started, we're going to do a slip knot. And then we're going to start our foundation half double crochet. And because this isn't just a chaining row, it'll be our row 1. And to do that, you're going to chain 2. And then you're going to yarn over and go through the first chain. You'll pull up a loop, pull up another loop through the first, and pull through all 3. And that's the foundation half double crochet. If you have any troubles with that, I will link a video I have that does it a little bit slower if you need a little bit more practice on the foundation half double crochet. Okay, now moving on to the next stitch, you're going to yarn over. You're going to go into the first stitch there on the bottom, and then you're going to pull up a loop, pull up another loop, and then pull through all 3. And moving on down the row, you'll do that for each stitch. So you'll go into the stitch right next to the next one. So you'll yarn over, go into the bottom one that's next to your hook, the bottom stitch, and then pull up a loop, pull up another loop, and pull through all 3. And for the medium size, you'll do this for 63 stitches across. Okay, now that you reached your total number of stitches for your row 1, we're going to go on to row number 2. And you're going to repeat row number 2 for a total of 12 rows. So first we're going to chain 1, and you're just going to half double crochet 63 across in each stitch. And you're going to repeat that for a total of 12 rows. Okay, now that you have reached your 12 rows, we're going to go on to the window stitch. And this is going to be row number 13. Okay, now for the window stitch, you're going to turn your work. You're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're going to double crochet into the 3rd stitch, so you'll skip 2 from the hook and do it in the 3rd. Then you will chain 2. You will skip 2 stitches and double crochet into the 3rd stitch. And you'll repeat this sequence until you get to the end. Chain 2, skip 2, and double crochet into the 3rd stitch. And once you reach the end, you'll chain 1, turn your work, and you will go back to just doing half double crochets as you did before. And so when you do your half double crochets, you want to do it into the actual stitch, not into the chain space. So you'll go back to doing 63 half double crochets all the way across. And you'll repeat that for rows 14 through 39. And if you feel like the top is a little too short for you, or even a little too long, you can either add or remove more rows from this point on. So instead of 39, you could reduce some or you could add some. Just keep in mind that the edging at the bottom will add a little bit more length as well, about 2 inches or so. So this is how your half double crochets should look like. Okay, now we're going to be going on to the bottom edging for your front panel. Now the edging is going to be the same for your front and your back panel. So let's start with row 1 of your edging. So for the first row, it's going to be the same steps as the window stitch. You're going to chain 4, skip 2, and double crochet into the 3rd stitch. And you'll repeat this until you reach the end of the row. now on to row 2 of the edging row. So you're going to turn your work. And then let's move on to the rest of your edging. You will chain 1. And then you're going to be working into the double crochets from your previous rows only. So you'll do 3 double crochets into the double crochet from the previous row, all into the same stitch space. And then we're going to chain 3. And you'll slip stitch into that first chain, And then we're going to be doing another 3 double crochets into that same stitch. And then you're going to single crochet on top of the next double crochet from the previous row. And you'll just repeat this sequence until you reach the last picot triangle. So then you'll double crochet 3 into the next double crochet from the previous row, chain 3, slip stitch into the first chain, and double crochet 3 more into the same space. And then just single crochet into the next double crochet from the previous row. Okay, so once you get towards the end of your row, you should end with a picot edge, and then you should do a single crochet, and then you should be left with a few chains at the end. And what you're going to do is you're going to skip 2 stitches, and you'll double crochet into that last stitch on the edge there. And this will finish off your front panel. So you will pull out a long tail for seaming up the sides, and then cut more than you will need, around 12 to 18 inches or so. That's what I always like to do, just to be safe. And to do your back panel, you'll just repeat the same steps, except for you will omit your window stitch row at the top. So you'll do 2 rows of half double crochets instead of the window stitch there. So it'll be a solid panel on the back. So you should come out with 41 rows on your back panel of just half double crochets. Okay, now that you have your back panel all finished, I'm going to show you how to do the seaming of the 2 panels together. So you just want to line everything up together all the corners and everything. Everything should measure the same. And then we're going to use our stitch markers to hold the place of our corners, and then we'll measure out our shoulders and then the armholes on the sides. So you'll start out by just putting in your stitch markers to join the two corners together for both panels. Okay, now we're going to count out the number of stitches for our shoulder seams. For the medium, you're going to do 14 stitches. So just count those out. And I'll just mark my place here with my tapestry needle to hold it in place. And then put in your stitch markers for both sides. And now for our armholes, you're going to count up from the top of your edging. You're not going to include your edging, that's going to be a split seam. So you're going to count up 19 rows and then place your stitch marker on both sides. Okay, so now we are going to go into seaming up the shoulders at the top. So you're gonna cut a piece to seam up with, like I said before, longer than you think you'll need. And we'll be attaching it to the corner here. And to do that, you'll just go through the two corners on the front and back panel here, and then you'll just tie it off on the end. And now you can just take out your stitch marker and then thread your yarn through your tapestry needle. And now to start the seaming, you're going to be going through the two posts on both sides of each stitch. So the front panel, you'll go through the V, so the 2 bars, and then the back panel, you go through the 2 bars, the V, and then you'll just zigzag that through all the way until you get to your other stitch marker which marks your shoulder length. You can also do a different seaming method that you prefer. This is just the one that I prefer, so you can do whichever one's comfortable for you. It really doesn't matter for this pattern, as long as you just get it seamed up. And I recommend once you finish both sides of your shoulders that you try on your garment before you go back down and do another seam, just to make sure your head fits through comfortably. Okay, now that you've reached the end, I usually like to check to see, if there's gaps in my seaming. And normally I just go back down and seam back along the way that I came, just to reinforce the seam. And you're just going to go ahead and repeat these same steps for the other side of your other shoulder as well. And now we're going to go ahead and do the seaming along the sides, which will be from the top part of our edging to the base of our armhole. So you're going to grab the tail that you left at the bottom of your edging when you finished your row, and we're going to feed it through so that we get to the base of our panel, so that we have that split seam on the sides. Because we don't want to do any seaming to our edging here. So you're gonna find on the side that the live yarn is, you're gonna go through the stitches that are above it, and I just zigzagged through the one side until I reached my half double crochets from my panel. And then that's where you're gonna go ahead and start your seaming. So now we can line everything up here, and we'll do just the same as we did at the top, where we go through the 2 bars from the front panel and the 2 bars from the back panel, and then zigzag your seaming along the side. I definitely recommend that before you make your second pass, going back down with the seaming, or before you go on to your other side, that you try on the garment to make sure that your arm fits comfortably through the armhole. If not, just make your adjustments, whether you need more room or less room. And just like I did on my shoulder seams, I'll check for any gaps, and then I'll make sure and get those spots and go back down and seam from the top down until you get to the end, just to reinforce everything. And you'll just go ahead and repeat these same steps for your other side, and then you'll be all done with your seaming. And now here I'm just checking to make sure my seam is all good. And you'll just go ahead and turn your work inside out, and then as long as everything fits good, cut your tails and seam them in, and you're all set. And there you have your Magnolia crop top. I'd love it if you liked and subscribed, and definitely use that Magnolia crop top hashtag so I can share your work that you've made. Thanks for following along.